zebrache pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishas Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tukdan Dagi Ye Tenyerme Chikto Chingelo Makyuke Kudan Dagelu Makyuke Sundan Daginga Makyuke Tukdan Dageyi Tenyerme Chikto Chingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sashipeke Choshimeto Ramare Ravalingashi Nidegem Padi Sangye Shinto Mikte Ulawarki Drokuna Namandashin Chopar Shoye Dhamma Guru Ratna Mandrala Kamniryatayami Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam Lai Chancho Pardo Dani Kepso Chin Dage Chushe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparash Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam Lai Chancho Pardo Dani Kepso Chin Dage Chushe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dage Chushe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Druparasho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge into enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Laike da ledane chenke rudadami kenamdan ruwakunge tanam chitsampa tamche keto dage chetento tamche keto dage chetento.
Good morning. as we've said, maybe the day before yesterday, we talk about this fundamental principle where every time there's an interaction, this interaction brings a change, which doesn't exist. It's not it's not possible for there to be an interaction that doesn't bring a change on both parts. So when I interact with you, I transform and you transform. There's a change that happens in front of any interaction. often we're not able to perceive these changes, but it doesn't mean that they're not happening. What we are inevitably the fruit of all the interactions that we have during our lifetime. Physical interactions, verbal, mental, emotional, all the interactions that we have that gradually transform us. And there's an important part that makes a reference to interacting with our past actions. We gave the example the other day, yesterday, I don't remember, the example of throwing a stick. Now I have this one here, it's very solid. If I throw it, the action finishes once I open up the hand and the stick starts flying. So at that point, the action is finished, but it has created a kind of inertia, a force, so that the stick keeps flying through the air. So even if the action itself has concluded, that action generates an inertia, an energy, a karmic force, it's called. Karma means action, so it's a force of the action. Degi nuba in Tibetan, the force of the action. If we think of the example from before, I open up my hand, the stick leaves my hand and flies through the air. So every time that we do something, it's true that the past is already finished, even if there's a lot to discuss about this. But there is something that exists today as the fruit of our past actions. So that I've opened my hand, the stick is flying. I've finished my action, but there's energy that makes it so that it keeps flying. If I throw this stick outside the atmosphere, it will keep going and going until it meets something else that transforms it into something else. Here I throw it. Here I throw it and it interacts with other forces. It interacts with gravity, with other objects. So there are things that interact with the strength of my throwing the stick, and then that will transform the object. So from one point of view, the past is the past, and what exists is the present, and this is real. We shouldn't be looking back to the past and regretting the past. What was done was done. What was said was said. We lived it. It's the past, and we shouldn't be re-suffering our past and going back and looking at it again and again and suffering again. On the other hand, the actions that we've done, the experience that we have lived, the physical actions, the verbal actions, and mental actions that we have done today, yesterday, the day before, yesterday, during our childhood, going back to the farthest of times, that generate an energy. And some of this energy some of these energies have interacted with other things and so are no longer there. Others have not, and they continue with us. So it's explained that it's like I throw the stick, the stick flies, it travels, that force stays with it until it doesn't come into contact with another object. So if I throw the stick and at a certain point there's your head in front, what happens? There's 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 a meeting pain, but the cause of that pain, what was it? It was the throwing the stick, that force that generated that inertia, and the fact that you got it in your head was a condition. So in this present moment we act, and with the actions that we do, we generate inertias, karmic forces, and at a certain point they interact with another action of the present moment. Let me explain myself better. The present is what ripens the past. At the same time, the present creates new causes for the future, new karmic forces. So in this present moment, we experience the result of causes created in the past, and at the same time, we create new causes for what we are going to experience at a certain time in the future. In other words, if we look from a different perspective, we're made up of habits. And in this present moment, we live the result of the habits that we've already created, our way of speaking, acting, our way of talking, the choices that 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 we've made. So this present moment is the fruit of the actions done, the choices taken, the interactions that have happened, and our habits that we've created. But in this present moment, not only do we create conditions to experience what we have created in the past, but in this present moment, we're adapting, transforming that which will be our future habits, our experiences in the future. So the present is the bridge that unites what we did in the past and what we're going to live in the future. What we experienced and did in the past and what we will experience in the future. So we're not free from our past. None of us, no one is free from his past. Excuse me if I say it like this so clearly, in the sense that I can't be free from the experiences that I've had, the thoughts that I've had, the actions that I've done, the conditionings, the habits that I've created, generated. These are all aspects that are part of my being. What I can do is choose to interact with my past so that I create an action, a strength that is going to either oppose those negative negative actions. So, for example, if I've thrown the stick in the wrong direction, I can put energy into opposing that before it hits somebody's head. So what I can do, I can interact with the existing forces so that I can try to stop that inertia before it gives a result, before it gives an unwanted fruit. So that so this fruit is not, the result is not something we want, but it's something that would happen otherwise. And the other function is to redirect our actions towards the future. If I see that I've done something that didn't work out, I need to try to eliminate that karmic force generated before and redirect it so that I am sure that I don't repeat that kind of action. So this is an activity that needs to be done daily, because the longer, the more time goes by without looking at our own actions, our way of acting, interacting, speaking, thinking, more we reinforce our habits that are harmful to us. So the point is, with awareness, we are kind to ourselves. We look at the actions that aren't beneficial, and we redirect them. And we also generate a virtuous, positive force to oppose the negative one that was previously generated. And this is called the process of purification, which would be the third of the 7 limbs. We have a lot to see today, so I'm going to go straight to the point. So the practice of purification is not experiencing results. We don't purify with suffering, for example. It's not by suffering that we purify. If it was through suffering that we if it were through suffering that we purified, we would have retreats. We could use malas with nails, you know, the creativity for suffering is very ample. All that human beings have always been very creative in thinking about ways of torture. But purification is not about experiencing the result of past actions. Purification is about eliminating that karmic force so that we don't have to experience the result. So I threw the stick. I find a way to stop it before it hits someone in the head. I did something stupid. I tried to generate an opposing action to stop that force that I generated before the results come about. This is what we mean by purification. A different metaphor would be a little bit like one thing is that I have a debt, or if I, and another thing is paying installments. You know, this is not purification. This is using up our negative karma. Every time we experience a negative result, we are using up. We're using up the negative karma that we had created, like paying off a debt. Instead, purification is like being released from that debt. So I eliminate the debt without having to pay it at all. This is what we mean by purification. And the practice of purifications are a little bit similar to, it's like I've done something wrong. I've been sentenced. A certain amount of time, and then I'm able to act. I've been able to act in an opposite way, and my sentence is reduced. Why is it important to purify? Mostly for 2 reasons. The first is that with purification, we redirect our actions. We are sure that we're not going to continuously reinforce bad habits that are existing, because every time I recognize a negative habit, I'm redirecting myself. I'm weakening certain habits, creating other positive habits, and this is very important. The second important aspect is that when we have a karmic force from a past action, and when this karmic force is showing its results, then it's too late to purify. If I throw the stick and I'm not able to stop it, you know, once it makes its loop and hits me in the back of the head, it gives me a headache. Now I need to treat my headache. It's like when we have a sickness. When that sickness is there, about to manifest because there are imbalances, if one is able to stop it before it comes out, better. Because once the sickness has come out, then one needs to face the sickness. When there are the causes for conflict between two people, for example, if one is able to stop those causes and eliminate them before there's conflict, much better, because once the conflict is present, at that point we need to pacify, we need to resolve what came about. So when there's a cause that was created, a karmic force that is manifested, and once that karmic force comes into contact with a condition and shows and materializes its result, at that point, we need to face that result. It's too late to purify, and also wait for that cycle to conclude. Are you following? Is it clear? So, in the practice of purification, there are 4 fundamental aspects to be able to purify an action done in the past. I'll try to be brief also, because not too long ago we spent 2 entire days on purification practices, and those who are interested, they can go back and look at these teachings that are recorded and on YouTube. They're called the 4 powers of purification, and they can be explained in different order. I'll explain it in the way that is easier for me to understand. The first power of purification is called the power of the basis, or support. It's usually explained as the last one, but let's explain it as the first. It's generating of an opposite feeling, a feeling opposite to the one that was generated at the moment of the action. So if I did an action taken by anger, I need to develop a feeling of love or gratitude. And so when we do our preliminary practices, at the beginning, we have generated a feeling of love towards ourselves and love and compassion towards others, with the taking of refuge and the generation of bodhicitta. These 2 feelings, they're very similar. It depends on where they're directed. These feelings of love and gratitude and taking of refuge, together with bodhicitta and love towards others, compassion. These 2 are the basis to be able to purify, because normally the non-virtuous actions that we can do are based on what? What's the inner state, the emotion that supports the action? Ignorance, selfishness, and then there's anger, resentment, hate, arrogance, miserliness, dissatisfaction, etc. So the first power is generating a sincere feeling of love. So I did something negative towards you. I need to generate a sincere feeling of love to oppose this action that I did. I won't be able to oppose this action if I continue with that same mental state. If I keep feeling hate towards you, it's not going to work. I won't be able to purify. So I need to go against that original feeling that I had when I did that action. Given that we don't have memory and awareness of all the actions that we've ever done, hardly we remember what we did yesterday. We do a general feeling of love and compassion, altruism. The second power is the power of the awareness of having done something wrong. Sometimes it's called the power of regret. The problem of the word regret is that in our culture, regret gives a sense of blame or guilt. But that has nothing to do with that. I mean, the point is openly admitting that we've done something wrong. I did something wrong, and it would have been better if I hadn't done that, because by doing that, I created a negative interdependence, and it shouldn't have been done. So we openly admit our mistakes. I physically acted in a non-virtuous way with violence or anger. I I acted verbally in a way that my speech was disrespectful, created division. I lied. Um, I I I acted based on feelings of resentment, envy. I desired the suffering of others, for example. So I recognize within the actions that were not positive, and I recognize first of all that they weren't good actions, and even just the meaning of regret. I see something that didn't go well, no? But the fundamental point is we shouldn't look for the guilty one. We're not talking about who is to blame. No one is to blame. I did this action. Why did I do it? Because I was taken by my own ignorance. Taken by my own ignorance in the with based on my education, on the experiences that I've had, all of my past traumas, my whole being, put it all together, and in the middle of all that, trying to be happy, trying not to suffer, I did this stupid thing. But we don't need to look for anyone to blame. We're all in the same boat. We're we're all trying to be happy, so we shouldn't be looking for the one to blame. The point is understanding which behavior is harmful, so that we can understand which actions should be avoided in the future. Block that karmic force and try to avoid doing that in the future. So I recognize that that action was not a positive action. So more than regretting, which is fine to regret, but I prefer to use openly admit our mistakes. The third power is the commitment to not repeat that kind of action. So not only do I recognize that that behavior was not healthy, was not virtuous, it was harmful to me and others. I take the commitment then to not repeat that behavior. It doesn't mean that I'm going to manage succeed, because often our behavior comes from deep habits that we have, conditionings. They're not conceptual. But we take the commitment to not repeat them. And probably we will fall again in the trap of that habit. And then we will again try to recognize to avoid that type of behavior. So this third power of purification is to take the commitment to not repeat. Normally we say, "Oh, Guru Buddha, bless me so that I have the strength and clarity to not repeat this action." And the fourth power, we do something virtuous in opposition to that past negative, non-virtuous action. Like, for example, I threw the stick. It's done. So first of all, I generate an opposite feeling. I did it with anger, so I generate a feeling of love. And based on that feeling of love, I recognize that throwing the stick wasn't the right choice. I was guided by my anger, by my ignorance, and so it was a wrong action that brings suffering. So I take the commitment to not repeat that kind of action. And at that point, I need to do something to stop that stick that's flying through the air. So I'm going to run, I'm going to jump, I'm going to do something. I throw something up in the air to to intercept the stick. I need to do something opposite that action that is already finished. And that's the fourth power, where we do a virtuous action in opposition to that negative action already computed. Is this clear? So in the third limb, we have Guru Buddha visualized in front of us. And after having made prostrations and offering, remember that he's not a simple visualization, he's the union of all wisdom beings. It's the union of our commitment being and all the wisdom beings. He is actually there, and as a witness, we openly admit our mistakes. So with that attitude that we generated at the beginning of love and compassion and bodhicitta with the taking of refuge. So here we openly admit our mistakes. We can say, I recognize all non-virtuous actions that I have done with body, speech, and mind, guided by my ignorance, by my anger, by my unlimited attachment, unlimited desire, envy, jealousy, fear, arrogance. I did actions that generate suffering, and I admit openly these actions as mistakes. I ask for the blessings from Guru Buddha to have the strength and clarity to never repeat them again. Regardless of the actions that I have done, with awareness or without awareness, whether I remember these actions or not, I admit openly my mistakes and I take the commitment to not repeat them. And at this point, we do something to eliminate, and we generate an opposing force opposed to that previous one. And there are different ways that we can do here. I'll explain the one that I personally like to do. We visualize that here we can do it in two different ways. I explain first in an easier way, and then I'll just touch on a more detailed way of doing. We visualize that from the heart of Guru Buddha, visualized in front of us, white light is emanated from his heart, and we can also we can add the emanation of Vajrasattva that comes from his heart, and from Vajrasattva, this flow of light nectar comes, emanates forth, and comes towards our crown, and little by little fills up our body. All of our karmic force, all our negative karmic force that has accumulated, these leave our body through our pores like dark smoke and dirt as our body fills up with nectar and white light. And as we do this, we recite the mantra of Vajrasattva, the mantra of the 108 syllables, Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya.
Anurakto me bhava sarva siddhi me prayatha sarva karma sutsa me citam shriyam kuruhum ha 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 ho bhagavan sarva tathagata vajra mame minsa vajra bhava maha samaya sattva ahum pe.
This mantra, whose meaning is to remind us of our nature, our mind being interdependent, our being is interdependent. This is one of the antidotes to purify negativities, also because at the basis of non-virtuous actions that we've done in the past, there's selfishness, and at the base of selfishness, there's ignorance. So there's seeing oneself and others as if they were independent from each other. And so when we meditate on the fact that our nature is an interdependent nature, that our mind, our being doesn't exist autonomously, independently from everything else, we're generating an opposite force opposite to the feeling, the thought done during the previous action. As I said before, we went into a lot of details when I gave these teachings before. So I invite you to go and look, just for a question of time. What's important that when we do the 7 limbs, after having made prostrations and offerings, we try to connect at our heart with our past negative actions. And so we're very kind with ourselves. We say, okay, well, we made a mistake. We don't punish ourselves. It's like a child who comes to us and says, I made a mistake. I did this and I shouldn't have done that. What do? We say, yeah, you're wrong. Now you need to be punished. And you know, it's a good spanking and really make that child remember, remember that this experience of having made a mistake. No, if you do like that, the child won't come to us a second time. So if the child comes and says, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have done that, it was a mistake. And if or we can say, oh, don't worry, here, have some candy. That's even worse, because in that second way of acting, the message I'm giving to the child is, given all that good work of self-awareness and recognizing, where you erred, is worth nothing. The third possibility is when the child comes crying and then you say, okay, you hug the child. It's good that you've recognized. Now let's do something together. Let's do something. Let's learn from what happened and let's give another direction. So we're kind and we redirect for the future. We use that experience as a point to support us for our growth. So we don't reinforce, we don't punish, or we don't pretend that nothing happened. Instead, we use that situation as an opportunity for growth, for learning, for becoming more mature. It's saying, I know that you able to not repeat this, and here I am. I'm here with you. The next time it happens, let's be careful, okay? This, yes. The same thing, we should do the same with ourselves. So the attitude isn't about making us feel guilty. Instead, we should be kind with ourselves, then redirect. And with this, we're kind with ourselves and we direct our actions. If we're able to do this every day, usually towards the end of the day, it's a very worthy way to direct our habits, not allow ourselves to go into vicious cycles of bad habits. It's a very important practice to do with a certain frequency, possibly every day. And at the end of the practice, after having recited the mantra of Vajrasattva, this is one possible way. At the end of the mantra recitation, we imagine, we feel that karmic force that was generated before is totally pacified. It's important that we oppose a negative force and we imagine that force is then eliminated, pacified, and that's represented by our body that becomes completely filled with light and nectar, completely free from any kind of dirt. What we're eliminating is the karmic force, the negative inertia. So we're generating a virtuous karmic force to oppose the first. Once, Atisha, who's this 11th century master who brought Buddhism to Tibet, not the first time that Buddhism came to Tibet, but our lineage comes from him. He's one of the most important masters, represented here to my right with the red cap, Atisha Timpankara Shigyana. During the trip from India, from Bangladesh to Tibet, he would often stop the caravan, and he would openly admit, saying, I did this, I made this mistake, and he would openly admit his mistakes. At a certain point, they went to him and said, Master, first of all, the admissions that you make, we can't even understand where the error is, where the mistake is. I mean, you could just, if you only knew all the mistakes we make, so you don't need to do that. We don't need to stop the caravan every time. It's a long trip. And then Tisha said, every small non-virtuous action, no matter how small it is, when it's not recognized, when it's not admitted, has the tendency to grow. So every time it's recognized, it needs to be stopped there and should not be left to grow, to multiply, because a small negative, when it's not taken care of, it can create great harm. Let's give an example. At a certain point, we say, we tell a lie because it was convenient at the time. Nobody realized, and so it went well for us that time. So what does that bring me? To tell more lies, or have I finished telling lies? No, I said one, it went well, so what do I do? When I find a situation that's more or less similar, I tell another lie. And then there'll be other similar situations, and at that point I tell yet another lie, until it gets to the point that it's a total habit, and maybe I'm not even able to discern what is wrong, what is true and what is not true, to the point where I start believing in my own lies, and I live reality, where I'm not able to not lie, and with every conversation I have, and that started with just one lie. When bad habits start with small things, they're not right away strong and then many. So when we see that there's a physical behavior or verbal or mental, we see that that's harmful, and there are two types. Those that for their nature are negative, like killing, stealing, lying, and then there are negative not because in their nature they create a negative interdependence, but because they're against a commitment I've taken. So, for example, if I've taken the commitment to make 3 prostrations every day, the morning I don't do it, is it a negative action? Yes, because I broke my commitment. It's not that I sinned and I'm going to hell. No, but I generated an action that generates low self-esteem. I broke a commitment that I have taken, and that creates a negative cycle. So these are negative actions, not for their nature, but because of the commitment I've taken. So people might say, well, better not to take commitments. Well, if you're not able to keep your commitments, better not to take them. Instead, if you're able to keep commitments, they generate a tremendous amount of positive energy, karma. So the smallest mistake that we realize, we should recognize it and admit it as soon as possible, and then do something to oppose that negative karmic force that was originally generated. The fourth branch of the seven branches. The first was prostrations. The second, making offerings. The third, openly admitting. This is purification, openly admitting our mistakes. We're purifying the past negative karmic force. Just to simplify, we say purify the karma, purify the actions, but the karma, the action, they're already finished. What we need to purify is the karmic force that was generated, this inertia of movement that was generated. It's like if I fight with someone, the fight has the fight is finished. The words that were said are already said. But I need to pacify that conflict now. I need to find a way to generating positive energy. I need to find a way to pacify this bad energy that was created during this conflict. So just one more thing about purification. When I recognize that I've done something that I shouldn't have or that's not beneficial, the way to eliminate that negative force is not by suffering. And every once in a while I hear people say, oh, with everything I live through, I should be enlightened. But it's not that through suffering that one grows spiritually. One can keep creating negative cycles, but one grows spiritually by cultivating virtue, not by suffering. So when I recognize that there's behavior that is not working, it's not that I need to pay the bill. I need to change my behavior. I don't know if this difference is clear. So there's no one to punish. We shouldn't be punishing, like, oh, I did that wrong thing. Okay, so I have suffered enough. No, it has nothing to do with that. We don't need to suffer. We need to change our behavior. We need to learn from our mistakes. Yes. And if there's something that we need to do, the first thing that we should do is that when we recognize non-virtuous actions that we've done, we shouldn't justify or victimize ourselves, not at all. I did something wrong, taken by my own ignorance, my own inability to do differently in that moment. How wonderful that I can recognize it so that I can make sure that I don't repeat this kind of behavior. We shouldn't victimize ourselves. Oh, I know I shouldn't have done that, but did you see what that person did? It's not my fault. If he hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have done that. No, it's done. We're not here to point the finger at anyone. We're not here to look for the guilty one, and much less to justify or victimize ourselves. We're here to learn from our actions, to have awareness, and to do differently. If I'm driving and I take the wrong road, okay, there I got there. Now I need to turn around, and the next time I'm there, I don't turn here, even if I like the scenic route, but it's not where I wanted to go. So similar to that, it's like I took poison. I recognize that I took poison, So and now I recognize that it was incredibly harmful. Even though the taste was good, I need an antidote. So the next branch, we have prostrations, offering, and purification. The next limb is very important. I'd say the first four are the most important. The fourth is rejoicing, feeling joy for virtuous actions, for that which is virtuous, positive. So I'm in front of you. I see your virtuous actions. I see your qualities. I see your joy, and I'm happy. I feel joy for the happiness and the virtue of others. Difficult. Why is it so difficult? Because we're taken by our own selfishness. And when someone does something good, our tendency is to compare ourselves. So I've seen people compare themselves to Lama Tsongkhapa in the sense they say, "Oh, well, if I had had those conditions, I would have meditated as much." Or if there's, someone goes on retreat, and then people say, "Yeah, well, if I just, you if I could live off of what I inherit, of my inheritance, would, I would I would be on retreat too." But we're not talking about you. We're talking about someone else. We shouldn't compare. And the fact that someone does something positive, it doesn't take anything away from us. Nothing at all. Our difficulty is that we try to see ourselves through this comparison with someone else. So, you know, so better to live surrounded by people who do negative things, because then I'm better off. So we cultivate criticism, and we highlight all negativities to show that we're not so bad. No, we need to cultivate the gratitude and rejoicing, seeing what is positive, what is beautiful. So we recognize we recognize what's not good, and we recognize our errors, and not other people's errors. We can't change their mistakes, you know. And recognizing other people's errors does nothing other than generate arrogance and aversion. So we recognize our own errors, but we recognize the qualities of others because by recognizing the virtue and the positive actions, the qualities and the joy of others, and feeling joy ourselves for this helps us generate an enormous amount of positive energy. It's said that rejoicing is the best practice for the lazy ones, because rejoice for what if I rejoice sincerely for what you have done virtuously, and you have a spiritual level that is the same as mine, I'm able to accumulate more or less the same amount of positive energy. So I'm there in my hammock. Oh, how beautiful that you're doing this prostration retreat. I rejoice. I rejoice sincerely for what you do, sincere. And I'm I'm generating virtuous energy as well, similar to what you are receiving through your actions. Um, and if that person is spiritually inferior to me, then I can I generate, it said, even even more energy than that person is generating. And if I rejoice for actions done by someone who is spiritually more developed, then it's said that we get a percentage of that. So we should rejoice for all the actions of all the Buddhas, of all the masters, of Lama Michel Rinpoche. I mean, you can think of a specific person, you can think of also on a general way, think of all of the actions done with love, all the commitments that are upheld, all the actions of generosity and love. Think of all these actions, and we generate joy in front of all that and rejoice. Feel this inner feeling of pleasure and joy for virtuous actions. And we do this towards the holy beings, towards the sentient beings, and towards ourselves. So we start by rejoicing for all the virtuous actions of, of beings who are more spiritually developed, those that we know, those that we don't know, the historical figures that we've heard about, those that we don't even know about. When we rejoice, then we rejoice for the virtuous actions of all sentient beings like us, still in samsara, but who are doing many, many positive things. There are many beautiful things that are happening in the world. So we rejoice for all the actions done with love. Every time someone helps another person, all the actions of generosity, etc. We rejoice for virtuous and positive things. We rejoice for the joy of others, and then in the end, we also rejoice for our own positive actions, the times we were able to maintain commitments, the times that I've shown generosity, all our positive actions. We rejoice for what we do positively. It seems quite simple, but it's not that easy because we're not used to it. In some cultures, like in Thailand, for example, when someone does something positive, virtuous, it's very normal to say, I rejoice for your merits. This is, here we say, very good, bravo, oh, you were so good. Good job, like to say, I am reinforcing your ego. Oh, you're so good. Or, or, or we say thank you, but no, and instead, I'm rejoicing for your virtuous act. This is a fundamental feeling. I mean, generating joy for virtue and happiness of the joy and happiness of others. The fifth limb that comes after, the fifth and the sixth, they can also be inverted. Normally, when we do the preliminary practices, when normally when we recite the verses of the seven limb practice, first we ask for the Buddha to remain with us and turn the wheel of Dharma, to remain with us until samsara ends. Sometimes it can also come after, but the point here is we ask Guru Buddha, please. We visualize Guru Buddha in front of us. We ask Guru Buddha, who is visualized in front of us, to remain. And asking him to remain is something that comes from the time of Buddha, because during the time of Buddha Shakyamuni, before dying, he went to one of his disciples, his attendant, Ananda was his name, and he said something like, I don't know, the specific words are written down somewhere. I don't remember exactly what they are. He said, oh, Ananda, a Buddha, if he wanted, he could live for tens of millions of years if he were asked. And then Ananda said, oh, that's wonderful. And then Buddha repeated, listen well, Ananda, a Buddha, if he wanted, and if he were asked, could live for tens of thousands of years. And Ananda said, that's so beautiful. No, Ananda, listen really well. A Buddha, if he wanted, and if he was asked, he could live for tens of thousands of years. And Ananda just didn't get it. And at this point, a short time after, Buddha left his body, and one main disciple of Buddha Shakyamuni, who reorganized the Sangha and the monastic Sangha, who at the time lived in the mountains of Burma. He lived far away because he was physically very similar to Buddha, and when they were together, it gave a little bit of confusion. And when he learned that Buddha had left his body, and then he went to Ananda and he scolded him, and he said, "You had this possibility. Where is your head?" And from this moment, the tradition of asking to remain was born, because there's a relationship. There's an interdependence on both sides. If I request, if I create if I make a request, I create the conditions for that thing to happen, because from the side of the Buddha, there is the desire to help in every way, and the compassion and love. So it's not about wanting or not, but it's about whether I have created the causes for that to happen. So I ask for Buddha to stay, to create the causes so that he can stay. Is that clear? Is this aspect clear? So we make requests for long life, and that's the same thing we do during a long life. I mean, the long life came about for this reason. We ask a Buddha to stay with us a long time. The you know the Buddhist the Tibetans always have this way of exaggerating, and so they would say, "May you live, for tens of thousands of years," instead of being a little bit more realistic, like, "May you live to 110, 120." No, so we do this to create on our part the causes that are necessary for this long life to come about. And in this case, we make the request asking Guru Buddha to stay always with us. We ask Guru Buddha to always manifest himself in a gross body to guide us along our path. In every life, in every moment, to stay always with us, so that we can get out of, until we get out of samsara, until every being is free from samsara. After this, when we do this request, we visualize that we go towards Guru Buddha, who's seated, and at the throne we offer a double vajra. I think that some of you during the long life pujas, there's a time where the Vajra master, the one who's seated. Last time it was Drupchen Rinpoche who did this. He stands up. You take this brocade with the double vajra, and it's offered to the master. The double vajra represents stability, long life and stability, because the body that upholds the life, may it be stable. So we offer a double vajra that absorbs into the throne of the Guru Buddha's throne in front of us. And then we ask for teachings. The ordiner here can be inverted. Sometimes first it's the request of teachings, and then the request to remain. These two can be inverted. When we make the request to turn the wheel of the Dharma, we make the request because it's said that many holy beings can interact with beings in many different forms, maybe even without teaching the Dharma. So it's said that the holy beings that have manifested without teaching the Dharma are much more than those who have manifested without teaching. So, because if there aren't beings who are not ready to receive the teachings, it's not worth anything. I mean, how many times has it happened that you've wanted to share something beautiful, but there wasn't the openness to listen, to take that in. So if the Buddha manifests himself in a physical form, but those around him don't have the maturity to receive the Dharma, then the Buddha will help in different ways. Here we create the causes to always receive the Dharma and to always be guided along the path by making this request. So here we visualize that we offer Guru Buddha a Dharma wheel. Here it's this wheel, like this wheel. I mean, it's like a wheel, like of a carriage or a bicycle, a car. It's a wheel, and this is the symbol that when Buddha Shakyamuni reached enlightenment, He was in the forest in present-day Bodh Gaya. The first words he said was, profound and peaceful, free from elaboration and non-composed. A nectar like this, I have realized, no matter who I explain it to, he will not be able to explain it, so I'm going to stay in the forest to meditate. These are the first words of Buddha after enlightenment, and it's said that he stayed 49 days in the forest meditating by himself, and at this point, two devas from the god realm who had clairvoyance, they saw that Buddha had reached this marvelous state of enlightenment. They came and they offered their symbols. One offered the Dharma wheel, that was Brahma, and Indra offered the conch shell. Here in Verbania, in Villa Taranto, there's a walking in Villa Taranto. There's a statue of Indra. I remember Lama Ganchen when he saw it, he really liked it. He thought it was a very auspicious, and he always made this connection between Indra and Intra, which is another name of Verbania, Intra. He always had these positive connections. So, because Indra offered. Here, these are the two symbols that represent the teachings of Buddha. So the conch shell was offered by Indra, and the Dharma wheel was offered. And so they offer these two symbols to him, and then Buddha started walking towards Sarnath, which is this place just outside Varanasi in India. They see that he was had a very different aspect than as compared to before. This is other disciples, and they ask for teachings, and he gave him the first teachings, the first turning of the wheel. He gave him the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, and the turning of the wheel. The teachings are divided into two. The oral teachings is when we transmit from one being to another. When teachings are transmitted, explanations, it's the part of listening, comprehending, and also meditating afterwards. But it's when the teachings are transmitted. This is what we mean by transmitting the oral turning of the wheel, and it's consistent. Also the actual contents is consistent. What one is taught, one shares. The limbs are 7. It's a 7-limb prayer. So from generation to generation, so transmitting from one to the next, handing down, mind to mind. I take a concept and I share it with you, and the other person understands it. When there's the comprehension of that concept, at that point we can say that the Dharma wheel has been turned, because it goes and the teachings have been handed down from generation to generation. So the teachings of experience is turned when I'm able to realize I have a non-conceptual experience. I'm able to feel love. I'm able to generate generosity. I'm able to transform my mind and my habits in a virtuous way. This is when the Dharma wheel of realizations is turned. And this is what determines whether a lineage is alive or not. It's said that Buddha's teachings will be alive as long as there's someone who can transmit these teachings, and that there is someone who receives them and is able to shape and transform his mind positively. It's in the transformation of the one who receives the teachings that we see that a tradition is alive. So the best way to keep the teachings alive, the best way to keep the doctrine Tempa alive, is one's own inner doctrine. This is the way of upholding the teachings of Buddhas by putting them into practice, realizing them ourselves. This is the way to keep this lineage alive. We can have all the texts, we can have thousands of monasteries, we can have 1,000 different external formal things, but if all of that is not able to transform the mind of people from a selfish to an altruistic state, from a state of ignorance to a state of wisdom, this means that the lineage is lost, the tradition is dead, is no longer there. So this is what we mean by the turning of the wheel of the Dharma. There's the oral one, and the one of realization. So we offer the wheel. Imagine that we offer the wheel to Guru Buddha in front of us, and as a result of this, Guru Buddha transmits the Dharma to us. Normally, when I do this prayer, I add, "Oh Guru Buddha, guide me with the Dharma in every moment, with every choice that I make, and every word that I say, every thought that I have. Be close to me and guide me with the Dharma in every moment." And we make this request. Buddha Shakyamuni himself said, for those who come after, and even those who were there in his lifetime, you should never teach something without it being requested first. This was one of the rules, and is still valid today. So independently of one's own ability, knowledge, one should never teach something if it's not requested. But one cannot also, but if one is asked 3 times, one has the obligation to teach. Of course, if one has the knowledge to be able to share. So the rule that exists is once request, it needs to be transmitted, but it's not transmitted. It shouldn't be transmitted if it's not requested. There's that's why we don't try to all the sutras begin with "one day I heard." So one day I heard. Buddha Shakyamuni was in this place, and at the time these people were there, and then this person asked this question, and Buddha answered like this. So Buddhists don't try to convert anyone. People need to ask the question, need to be open. And this is, we also have this tradition of making the mandala offering at the beginning as a request. I'm not teaching because I feel like it. No, there's this exchange. So we make this request to create the causes, to be guided, to receive the teachings and be guided. So with this, we conclude the 6th branch. So prostrations, offerings, purifications, rejoicing, asking to stay, asking to turn the wheel of Dharma. And then the 7th is making dedications. dedicating means that we're directing the karmic force, the positive karmic force that we've generated. So we take, when we do an action, the same example as before, I take this stick and I can give a direction to that energy. Like, using an analogy that's not so great, but at the end of the month, I have my paycheck, and I'm going to direct those money. These money go here. These I'm going to save. I have a little savings for this, and so I can separate and direct the money. And if I don't, and if I just leave them, one day I make a wrong investment, or maybe I spend them on something that I shouldn't, and I lose money. Or, you know, instead, if I direct them before, you, so they're not lost. The example that's given is if I'm able to accumulate just a glass of water, I can keep this glass of water for myself, for me. It's precious, important. But it's, maybe I fall, or I can lose as this water, this glass can break. Instead of keeping the glass with me, I bring this glass to the lake and I pour my glass of water into the lake. My water, my water is in the lake, isn't it? Yes. So I have the right to take it back because it's the water that I put in. But can I distinguish my water from all the water of the lake? No. So it's not possible to take it back and drink it. Similarly, it's said that, but this is a way of not losing the water, you know. So because it's protected by the water of everyone else too. So when we have virtuous energy that we've generated, that we've done, if we're able to direct it for the benefit of everyone with a feeling of love, we dedicate, may this positive energy that I generate be the cause for every being to be free from suffering, for every being, for every being to reach enlightenment. So I dedicate the positive energy that I created to the happiness, to the enlightenment of every being. I can dedicate for many things, I can dedicate it so that those who are sick be healed from their sickness, or may the hungry be freed from their hunger. May those who are afflicted by mental suffering be free from their mental suffering. I can do it in many different ways. There's a very beautiful text. I invite you to read it. It's the 10th chapter of the 10th chapter of the Bodhisattva Charvatara, the way of life of a bodhisattva, and Shantideva makes dedications. It's absolutely beautiful. He says, may all weapons be transformed into flowers. It's very, very beautiful the way he dedicates. There's one verse, seeing in Tibetan is quite clear, but you can translate things differently. Things can be translated differently. I should say this because I don't know what kind of translation you're going to find. There's one line. There's one line that if it's not translated well, it kind of ruins everything else. Every once in a while, I've found that sometimes I've found translations where it says, "May all women be transformed into men," as if being a woman was something negative. But if we look at the original text, the way I read it is, may all the women have the same rights and live in the same way that men do. Remembering that this text was written in a totally different social context, where women had much fewer rights than men. I say this is just because it could happen that maybe you come across this passage in the text and you generate a negative view. I mean, that can happen. Maybe someone says, oh, this Shantideva, maybe everything's absolutely beautiful, but then this one point is negative and we throw everything away. Instead, it's important to look at things more clearly. And so this was, and I'm just going to close this parenthesis. So dedicating is a very important activity, because when we dedicate, we rejoice for virtuous things. In rejoicing for the beautiful things that we've done, we also dedicate a good self-esteem. We say, how wonderful that I did this. I was able to do it. There's a beautiful part of this. And at the same time, I take that energy and I dedicate it to others. So I'm increasing it. I'm not losing it. I'm reinforcing it even more by dedicating it. It's said that dedicating protects it, like putting money in a very secure place. Like my example before, the water is protected. I'm putting my water in the lake. Now it's protected. It's there with everybody else. So by dedicating is one of the most important parts of our path. And it's said that every time we do something virtuous, we should do two things. Atisha says there are two actions to do. This is in the garland of the Bodhisattva. We should do something at the beginning and something at the end. At the beginning, we should generate our motivation, remember why we're doing what we do, and generate a sincere feeling of love and compassion, where we direct clearly why we're doing what we're doing. At the end, we should dedicate. So at the beginning, we generate the motivation, and at the end, we dedicate. This is in the jewel garland of the Bodhisattva by Atisha. So when we help someone, we do anything positive, we generate the motivation at the beginning, and then we make dedications at the end. There are many verses that were written by different masters over the centuries, and we can use the ones that were already written, or we can use our own creativity. I mean, words function to direct our mind. So making a dedication, it's not that I do. It's not that I recite a verse of dedication and I'm thinking about lunch, Jetsun Lame Kutsen Raptenshin, etc. No, it's not the words. It's a feeling. It's a thought, and the words function to direct our mind. So we can use the verses that are already existent, or we can use our own creativity, our own feelings. I mean, what is it that we want to dedicate? Do we want to dedicate to the environment, to peace, harmony? Do we want all beings to be in more harmony with themselves and others, so that they become less selfish, for there to be less hate, less polarization, more understanding, more friendship, more? We can dedicate for specific things or general things. So if there's someone who's sick, we can dedicate for that person specifically, and we can also dedicate in a general way for everyone. But the concept of dedicating, because there's a very simple difference between what's called a prayer, and the correct word is not prayer, but is mun lam, which is because prayer, the prayer is like asking for something. I pray you. I'm asking for something instead. In Tibetan, we use the term Mönlam. Mönpa means aspiration, so a virtuous desire. Lam means path, so it's the path of aspiration. So, so a prayer is when we desire something virtuous, something positive. I pray for you. I'm not. I'm desiring something positive for you. I desire your peace, your health, everything that's good for you. And when I generate that virtuous feeling, this is Munlam. These are aspirational words, verses. Instead, Noah were dedications. We're dedicating. We're desiring virtuous things for others, but in the generalized um, um, prayer, it's something that we want, and instead, for the dedication, we're directing our positive karma for that. It's like saying, um, "Oh, I really wish that I want this to come about," and then in the dedication, it says, "I want this to happen, and I'm going to use this, this savings that I have for it to come about." So the difference between the aspirational verses and dedication, we have a substance for the dedication. That's why when we make dedications, often we use the substance of the dedication. So we make an offering often, or we do something to generate something, a positive energy, and that is dedicated for what we want. So we generate this positive energy, and with that positive energy, we direct it in one way or another. So when we do any virtuous action, it's important at the end to dedicate, possibly in an altruistic way. Ideally, open our hearts, not just for ourselves, but share that positive energy that was generated for the good of everyone. This is the part where we make dedications. There's no particular visualization during the moment of dedication, but there's this inner feeling of sharing and desiring the best for everyone. Is that clear? With this, we conclude the 7 limbs. Remember that it's not just 7 lines to recite in a prayer that we need to do because it's written. No, there's 7 actions to do daily. So we pay homage, we make offerings, we openly admit our mistakes, and we redirect our actions. We rejoice for virtuous actions. We create contact with the holy beings, asking them to stay with us, asking for Dharma teachings, creating this positive interdependence with Dharma itself. This also reinforces our refuge in the Dharma, and then we dedicate everything positive that we've done for the benefit of all beings. These are the 7 limbs. Can someone bring me a Guru Puja book, please? Here in front. There you go. Take the Guru Puja. I wanted quickly to show you something. The text of the Guru Puja, it's a sadhana, which means in Tibetan we say gomde. It's meditation with recitation, where the words are there to direct the mind. So if we start with verse number 1, there are 2 ways to recite it. Just a minute, let everyone get a text. So if we start with verse number 1, now obviously we're not going to go look at the whole Guru Puja. I just want to show divide it into blocks. There are two different ways to recite the Guru Puja. The original way, written as it was written by Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen, even if the original Guru Puja actually starts in verse number 9. The previous verses, I mean, there are many, many different Guru Puja texts. This is the one. This one was done so well. Then this one was taken as the most excellent one. But the Guru of Panchen Lama Lobsang Chökyi Gyaltsen wrote this. Sorry, not 8, not verse 8. Sorry. So no, verse 8 was already part of the text written by Lobsang Chökyi Gyaltsen, but what wasn't to be recited. The other verses were written by Kedrib Sangye Yeshe, the main guru and master of Lobsang Chökyi Gyaltsen. And in this way, to practice, it's done for more advanced practitioners. So Phabongkha Rinpoche adapted the text for beginners because he believed at the time that 99% of those who lived in Tibet were about year at the turn of the 20th century, in 1900. So he said we should invert the order. So verse number 1 should be recited after verse 6, because verse number 1 is when one makes a self-generation and purifies the place. And if we follow the six dharmas of preparation, the first one is preparing the place, the second one is the offering, and then the third one is the body and the mind. This bringing the mind into a neutral state, generate bodhicitta, and then love towards oneself. So refuge, and then bodhicitta, love towards others. So love towards oneself, refuge, and then bodhicitta. So one, it's so after the meditation on our breath, then I take refuge. So verse 2 and 3, and then verse 4 and 5, I generate bodhicitta, love and compassion towards others. And there's also the practice of bringing the path into the path, where I see myself as Guru Buddha, and from my heart, inseparable from the heart of Guru Buddha, light rays emanate and purify all the suffering of all the beings. And then verse 6, we generate the specific motivation. Then we go back to verse number 1, where we prepare our merit field, ourselves, Guru Buddha in front of us. Guru Buddha dissolves into light. Everything dissolves into this golden light. And from this, we arise in a pure state, in a pure environment. And from our heart, light rays emanate that purify the environment. We generate the offerings as we do every morning. And so if we see, this makes reference to verse number 1. So verse 7 and 8 have to do with generating and purifying offerings from verse 9 to verse 14. This is the description of the visualization of the merit field. So we're in the 4th Dharma of preparation, and 15 and 16, this is inviting the wisdom beings. So in 14, we're generating the commitment being. 15 and 16, we're invoking the wisdom beings, and in verse 17, the the wisdom beings become inseparable from the commitment beings. Those of you who followed the previous days, it's all clear. Those of you who haven't, maybe you're a little lost. Then, afterwards, we can do the practice of the bath offering, ablution, or we go directly to the 7 limits. What's the first of the 7? Prostrations. So, verse 18 to verse 22. These are prostrations. After prostrations, we have offerings, which go from verse 23 to verse 37. These are all offerings. After the offerings, we have purification. Here is translated as confession, openly admitting one's mistake. And that's verse 38. And then we have rejoicing, verse 39. Then we have 40, requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma. 41, requesting to remain. 42, dedication. And with this, we conclude the 7-limb practice. Have you understood the structure of the Guru Puja up to this point? The 6th Dharma of preparation is requesting and receiving the blessings. And at this point, what we do is, after having created this connection with Guru Buddha in front of us, we are going to ask for blessings. We ask Guru Buddha to interact with us. We ask to exchange the energy of his body, speech, and mind so that we too can develop our qualities. And similar to what we've said in the previous days, it's like when we get close to someone, and just being in the presence of that person influences us somehow. You know, if we're near someone very angry, we're influenced. If we're near someone very joyous or in great harmony and peace, so we ask Guru Buddha to influence us. We say, please influence me with the energy of your body so that my body is similar to yours, so that my speech be similar to yours, so that my mind be similar to yours. In making this request in the Guru Puja, there's one extra point, which is a specific point of request from verse 43. These requests from verse 43 until 52. These are the verses of requests. And as we make the request for blessings in these, it's like one is purifying, cleaning cleaning the relationship one has with the Guru. So first we recall the qualities of the Guru, and as we recall his qualities, any impurity of our relationship, any judgment, any doubt is any impurity is cleansed, is purified. And so it's like before interacting with someone, for example, if to interact positively, we need to purify anything negative that's between us. Maybe I remember your qualities, and by remembering your qualities, I'm cleaning any kind of impurity that remains between us. And then we go to verse 53. And in verse 53, which we call verse 53 is the Putsikordek, which is translated as making firm supplications from the heart, but it's actually making a request like a dagger. Like, for example, when you set up a tent and you put up the you nail down, you set the tent firmly, you know, because on this dagger, this little this pointed thing, you hit it again and again and again. Okay, because we say, okay, we've already said it, but let's repeat it again. Let's insist on this point. So we ask here Guru Buddha to come from the depth of our hearts. We request his blessings from the depth of our hearts. When we do the preliminary practices, like we do every morning with the self-healing practice, we can all do this. We can do the mandala offering, and then we do Locho Sampo Pakyuta Shipa. There we ask for blessings when we recite the Guru's mantra, Locho Sampo Pakyuta Shipa. What's important in this moment of the practice is that we're connected with Guru Buddha and all the Gurus of the lineage and all holy beings. And we ask from the depth of our hearts to interact positively with us. We ask from the depth of our hearts to be blessed by them. Imagine something. Have you ever heard about mirror neurons? I don't know how to explain exactly how it works, but from what I understand, the neuroscience has discovered that when someone is near another, there's a part of one's own neurons that imitate the person in front of them. And this happens a lot between parents and children, where one, quote unquote, learns certain behavior from the presence of the other. And that's why it's called a mirror. They learn from the other. They repeat from the other who's in front. It's as if the body of Guru Buddha vibrates with a certain frequency, and being in the influence of that frequency, we learn too. Some time ago, I watched a video that explained how synchronization works in nature. It's really beautiful, because if we put many objects together that are not synchronized among them, for example, after a while, they start to become synchronized because they interact in a very subtle way, and at a certain point, they all are synchronized in the same way. It's as if our body received the vibrations of Guru Buddha, and gradually we start vibrating in the same way. Our body, speech, and mind, as we're so overwhelmed by the presence of Guru Buddha, that we start becoming like him or her. You know, the Buddha is not man or woman. He's beyond, she is beyond gender. So we ask for blessings. We ask, please interact. I want to transform my mind. Be a favorable condition. And from the depth of my heart, from the depth of our hearts, we ask for the blessings. We make requests of blessings. And then Guru Buddha accepts our requests with a smile. And at this point, light rays and nectar, white from our crown, red from our throat, blue from our heart, yellow from our navel, green from our secret chakra, they emanate from his or her secret chakra, 5 chakras, and absorb into our respective chakras. Those of you who have more familiarity with the self-healing practice, you can imagine that the white light in our crown eliminates all the impurities of our body and all our ignorance, just like self-healing. Red light at our throat eliminates distraction and dissatisfaction. It generates concentration, satisfaction. At our heart, it purifies our mind, generates love, stability, joy, eliminating anger, hate. At our navel, It eliminates arrogance and miserliness and generates generosity. And our secret chakra, we generate the powers of realization, the certainty of in every action, self-esteem, positive self-esteem. We generate happiness for the happiness of others and joy, and we eliminate fear, uncertainty, jealousy, and envy. And gradually we imagine that these lights come and they fill up our body, and it's as if we get closer and closer to Guru Buddha. We imagine our 5 chakras are completely balanced, our qualities are revitalized, and there's no more space for our mental defilements. It's like light comes in and there's no more space for darkness. And we do this visualization as we recite the mantra of the Guru. Or, like in self-healing, the brief version, Om A Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum, as we visualize the light rays that come and absorb into us. After this, we visualize that an emanation of Guru Buddha comes towards us, comes through our crown, and he sits joyously at our heart chakra on an 8-petaled lotus flower. And this moment we imagine, because at our heart there's our very subtle body and mind, and when Guru Buddha comes and sits there, it's as if they melted and our mind becomes overwhelmed with the mind of Guru Buddha. Remember, we at this moment we allow ourselves to experience that state of nirvana, to be inseparable from Guru Buddha. And the meditation to do in here is to meditate on our mind being inseparable from the mind of Guru Buddha, our body inseparable from the body of Guru Buddha, our speech inseparable from the speech of Guru Buddha. We allow ourselves to live that experience as if it really has already occurred, and it's one of the strongest and the most beautiful meditations. One can spend as much time as one wants here in this meditation. And this is also the time to meditate on the Mahamudra. Let me close that, which would be the meditate on the ultimate nature of one's own mind. Then we can ask for specific blessings, or we can conclude with the absorption. In the text of Guru Puja 53 describes the description of receiving the blessings and receiving the blessings, and then the part in the middle. These are extras of the Guru Puja. It's the part of the offering of the talk. So we jump the original text. We would go from verse 54 to verse 84. In verse 84, here we're asking for specific blessings. We can recite all the verses from 84 to 114, or we can recite specific verses, ask for blessings to realize impermanence or stability, for joy, for something specific that we desire. The beauty of these verses is that they bring us to reflect the first qualities that we should develop along the path, all the way to the qualities of becoming a Buddha. So for example, verse 84, it says, "Through the power of having made offerings and respectful requests to you, O holy and venerable Gurus, supreme merit field, we seek your blessings, O protectors and root of well-being and bliss, so that we may come under your care, realizing realizing how this freedom and endowments is found but once, is difficult to obtain and easily lost, we seek your blessings to partake of its essence, make it worthwhile, and not be distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. The 84 is where we ask for realizations on how to rely correctly on our spiritual guide. In verse 85, we ask for the blessings to develop like how to take the essence of our human life, and this can come in two ways, two parts. First, we imagine the light rays that come from Guru Buddha to us that eliminate all of our interferences and negativities to be able to realize these specific points. And then those light rays, they revitalize our qualities, and we imagine that we realize, for example, the preciousness of this life, and we realize each specific point: love, compassion, we can the 6 perfections, etc., from beginning to end. I invite you to read the entire Guru Puja in your own language, and when you get to this specific point, to read it in your own language, or or in both Tibetan and your own language. And then we jump to verse 115. After having asked for blessings, there are 2 different ways that we can, different ways of concluding. One is where we have done the preliminaries as the preliminary to do another practice. So, for example, in the practice of self-healing, for example, the part of Oma Guru Buddha sitting home is the end of the preliminaries. So there's already continuity there. But if we want, for example, to meditate on impermanence, we want to meditate on the preciousness of this life, or do any other practice where we first did the preliminaries, at that point, we do an absorption where an emanation of Guru Buddha stays in front of us, an emanation of Guru Buddha comes towards us. Another time, goes into our crown and sits at our heart. If instead we want to conclude the practice in the sense that we're not going to do other meditations after, and we've done our preliminary practices as a very important practice to prepare ourselves and our spiritual practice, at this point we imagine that Guru Buddha, who is in front of us, it's not an emanation, but he actually comes towards us. As he gets close, he becomes as small as a thumb, turns and looks in our same direction, enters into our central channel from our crown, and sits at an 8-petaled lotus at our heart on a sun and a moon cushion. And we feel that our mind and body are inseparable. Our body, speech, and mind are inseparable from Guru Buddha. At this point, the petals close wrapping Guru Buddha at our heart, and with a beautiful rainbow light surrounding. And he's with us now with any practice that we want to do. If we take verse 115, it says, "Due to our making a request, O Supreme Guru, please bless us, happily alighting on the crown of our heads, and once again set your radiant feet firmly on the anthers of the lotus of our hearts." We ask Guru Buddha to come to our crown. He sits at our crown, looking out in our same direction, and then goes down our central channel and sits at our heart. And having done this, we do our final dedications. In the Guru Puja, it's from verse 116 and 17. These are the original verses of the dedication in the Guru Puja. In verse 118 and 118 to 122. Those were added after. I tried to abbreviate a little bit here to cut it a little bit short, but we'll have many other opportunities to talk about blessings. But in essence, I think it's quite clear. Receiving blessings, we should try to do it calmly, reciting mantra, our Guru's mantra, imagining the light and nectars that come to us, feeling this closeness, and we allow ourselves to feel this state of nirvana with Guru Buddha from our crown to our heart. We feel that deep state of peace. And this is one of the most beautiful and most important meditations that we can do, where our mind is inseparable from the mind of Guru Buddha. This is called the meditation of absolute Guru Yoga. Before, when Guru Buddha is in front of us and we do the 7 limbs, this is relative Guru Yoga. But when Guru Buddha absorbs into us and we become inseparable and of the same nature, one thing, our mind becomes like the mind of Guru Buddha. It's not that we pollute his mind, it's the opposite. He purifies us. This is called the absolute Guru Yoga, and this is one of the most important practices that we can do. Something that you can also do very quickly, the days where we don't have a lot of time, when we get up in the morning, we do 3 prostrations, we light incense, we make a water bowl offerings, and according to our abilities, and we sit down for 5 minutes. You don't need much more. We sit down for 5 minutes. We take refuge. We can breathe. Inhale, exhale a couple of times. We bring our attention to the present moment. We take refuge. We generate bodhicitta. Then we visualize Guru Buddha in front of us, inseparable from all wisdom beings, and we ask for the blessings. Locho Sampo Pakyu Trashipa. Locho Sampo Pakyu Trashipa. Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Muni Shasane Karma, etc. I can recite it 3 times. I can also just recite Oma Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum and the 5 lights and nectars from the 5 chakras absorb into ours, and then we recite Pakyuke Kyudan. Father, your body and my body. Father, your speech and my speech. Father, your mind and my mind. May they become inseparable of the same nature. Makyuke Kudan Dagilu. Mother, your body and my body. Mother, your speech and my speech. Mother, your mind and my mind. Bless me so they become inseparable and of the same nature. And we recite this and we visualize that Guru Buddha comes, sits at our crown, rests at our heart, and then we dedicate so that that we can be inseparable and of the same nature as Guru Buddha, and then for the benefit of all beings. And then Guru Buddha stays with us through all our daily actions. When there's something beautiful that we see, we dedicate to him, or if we have some kind of difficulty, we imagine that their light rays go out from our heart, or help us overcome a difficult situation, or help others overcome difficult situations. And with this, we conclude briefly the 6 dharmas of preparation. And as I said at the beginning, the 6 dharmas of preparation are extremely important. It's the basis of all practices, and they should be lived with seriousness. Even though the 6 dharmas of preparation is not something that we recite. The Guru Puja, for example, is a real manual. It's done in a most excellent fashion. We don't need to reinvent the manual. Here it is. The map is already here. But it's not enough to have a map. We need to walk. So when we make the visualizations and we imagine inner states, it's like walking along the path where we receive the blessings. We can do the preliminary practice before we study the Dharma, and also just to familiarize ourselves with them, or before doing a practice. I wanted to go a little bit quickly today because tomorrow we will do the preliminary practices together tomorrow, but then we will recite a particular sutra that was advised to us by the oracle for the quick return of Lama Michel Rinpoche. And I take advantage to say, and I just say that we're here to create the conditions, that we create the causes. And as it's been said before, we wait at least 3 years after the passing of our master before we even start looking for the reincarnation. It's not that, people are thinking, oh, maybe it's already here. No. When it is, it will be known, and so we need to be careful not to create interference. It's not the moment to go looking for the reincarnation. It's the moment to create the causes on our side for that to happen without interference. We were advised to recite this sutra at least 1,000 times a month. So we're going to begin this tomorrow. And that's why I wanted to conclude the explanation of the 6 dharmas of preparation. It gave me a lot of joy to be able to share the 6 dharmas of preparation. I offered the best that I could. We could have gotten into more details in some parts, but it's a process for a lifetime. What's most important is to put into practice what we've learned. We're not academics, we're practitioners. And a practitioner needs to put into practice and doesn't necessarily have to understand absolutely everything. So it's time for our dedications.
Losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyur che jash sashi peki chukshi meto trama rirava lingshi nide gemba de sange shindu mikte ulwargi drogu namda shingla che parasho ye damang guru ratna mandrala kam niryata yami kewa kuntu yanda lamada Rame cheki pela longche ching sadan lamgi yente rabzone dorje change kopa nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chinge lobo kuncho sumki ngodrup kuncho sumki trashi sho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the 3 jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
At night or midday, may the 3 jewels grant us their blessing. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Oma Huntumba Lame Sangye Rinpoche, Kyoba Lame Tamcho Rinpoche, Dremba Lame Gendo Rinpoche, Kyamne Kunsho Sumla Chopa. Buon appetito.
And I just want to say something. And it's not towards those of you who are here, but it's a message for those who are not here, that tomorrow, for the recitation of the sutra, those who are interested, those of you who are interested in the reincarnation of Lama Gangchen Rinpoche, it's the time to come. We need to put all of our energy into this.